Hello? Hello?
Hey, Will, I can hear you. Can you hear me, Will?
Yeah, I can hear you, Charlie.
Okay, great.
How's everyone doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. You know, if we were meeting in person, we would say hello and how's it going? It's hard
Right.
to do now, but anyhow,
Hi, how are you?
hey, it's just like you're here in real life. I'm
I'm
fine,
not-
Councilwoman Ryder. I like your background.
Oh, it's unpainted plyboard.
Fancy.
And I'm eating cheese on the side. That's why I was like hanging out
Mm.
over there.
Okay, you didn't have to tell us that, but that's good to know. Good to
You
make
need to
this
share.
on
Share
not
the
on an
cheese.
empty stomach.
Mayor, Councilman Roberto will be doing the invocation and Councilman Smith will be leading us in the pledge.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, is everybody, all council members, are they all signed in? I don't see
bel-
Miss Singh.
No, she's not here.
Okay. Well, I'll give it another minute, I guess. Why don't we go ahead and start, and she'll probably join us by the time we finish with the pledge. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Councilman Roberto, would you lead us with an invocation followed by Councilman Smith leading us in the pledge?
Thank you, Mayor. We gather tonight in a time of uncertainty, a time of great need. Lead our hearts and our hands to growing the loving spirit of our community. Lift up those who are fearful and provide them a sense of comfort. Lift up those who are sick and grant them your healing touch. Lift up those who are hungry and bring them nourishment. Lift up our doctors and nurses that provide exceptional care in the face of so much pain and sorrow. Lift up those on the front lines whose bravery and hard work provides for us all. Continue to protect those who faithfully serve our community, and grant us wisdom, patience, and understanding in our deliberations tonight, so that our actions may be worthy of your continued blessings. Amen.
Mayor, we'll use your flag.
Okay, here we are.
I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the
The
flag
flag of the
United States of
America and to
Which-
the
Republic,
republic
one
which
nation,
which it stands, one
one
nation,
Under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty.
liberty and
and
justice
justice for all.
for all.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, will you conduct the roll call, please?
Councilwoman Fugit,
Here.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Here.
Councilwoman Parker,
Here.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Here.
Councilman Roberto,
Here.
Councilwoman Singh,
Here.
Councilman Smith,
Here.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Here.
Councilman Thomas.
Here.
All present, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next item is approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilwoman Ryder. Any discussion? Please do a roll call vote.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh.
Yes.
Okay, motion to approve the minutes passes 9-0. Now on to the agenda. Are there any items that council members wish to withdraw? Okay, any items that council members wish to postpone? Councilman Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to postpone item 12F and item 12H. I think those both need some more time for some public discussion and consideration.
I'll second that.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor by Councilman Roberto to postpone item 12F and 12H, seconded by Councilwoman Ryder. Any discussion?
How long for?
Oh,
2 weeks.
for 2 weeks. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please do a roll call vote about this postponement of 2 items, 12F and H, for 2 weeks.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas, Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Yes.
Okay, those items are postponed by a 9-0 vote. Any other items for postponement? Seeing none, how about items requested to be added? Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. Items 11K through 11R pensions and item 12W 202. Is there a motion? Motion made to approve consent by Councilwoman Fugit, seconded by
Second.
Councilwoman Testerman. Any discussion? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder, excuse me, Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes. Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda is approved 9-0. Next item is my report to you. So first, foremost on everyone's mind is our response in COVID-19. As you all know, we are making progress as a community, and I appreciate everyone's patience, understanding, and willingness to help look after one another. We have flattened the curve. We have built up supplies of PPEs. The health department has worked hard to increase availability of tests, and our hospitals have collaborated to create capacity in case we experience a surge in illness. So as again, you all are very familiar, last Friday, we took the first steps to gradually start reopening some non-essential businesses. And I just want to emphasize that this is not a return to pre-pandemic normals. We are many, many months away from being back to normal. And so we are opening very slowly in phases. Phase 1 is going to started May 1st and is going to last 28 days at minimum. And at that time, we will decide whether to pause, move forward, or if need be, go back, depending on the health metrics of our community. And the health department has a great website, and they've added more and more data to that every day. And I publish, with our communications team, a dashboard every day that sort of lists the daily update and also the change from the previous day. And I think one of the most important data points is the number of active cases. And that has thankfully been very low and continues to remain pretty low, but we're obviously, all of us are monitoring it very closely. So it's important also to remember that nobody's required to reopen, but if you're permitted to, as long as you follow the guidelines that the health department has set forth. And you all know that, but I'll just mention this to anyone who might be watching from the public, to get to read all of the guidelines and get FAQs, and to find out if you have particular questions of a particular type of business, go to the health department website, covid.knoxcountytn.gov. There's parts to set forth the benchmarks. There's particular guidance by business sector and all that sort of thing. I just want to again thank the health department. They've been working really hard, and their website is really good and keeps getting better and adding more information and more transparency. And I do expect midway through phase 1 to get a report back from the health department with their expert opinion on what those metrics say. The metrics right now are all, they're complex things, not a single measure, but each one is in the green phase. They're green, saying it's okay to be gradually reopening. But if they go to yellow or red, that'll be an opportunity to, that'll be a time to consider other actions. So everyone is encouraged, even though we're doing this reopening, to take it slow. And always, in all the phases, we have to continue to practice physical distancing, wear cloth face coverings in public, practice proper hand washing, sanitize surfaces, and work remotely if you can. I want to thank all council members for all your engagement, on everything, but in particular during this pandemic. You guys have been asking great questions, learning the details inside and out, helping research what other cities are doing, and offering good suggestions. And I think this is really important, is communicating the city's actions and just the general pandemic information to our various constituencies. Because we put out a lot of communications, but you all have your own channels and other ways of communicating, and that's really important. I think many, if not all, council members had an opportunity to participate in a seminar last week with Dr. Buchanan. She met with members of the City Council and County Commission 2 different times on Friday, giving an overview and answering questions about the reopening. So if you can rewatch those if you want to, or watch the one that you didn't participate in, and so can members of the public. So thank you for being so engaged and for setting good examples. And also, we were one of the first elected groups in the state of Tennessee to go to these virtual meetings. And I think, again, while it's not preferable to in person, we've done a good job, and I appreciate all your patience with that. So later on in today's agenda, we'll be talking about the COVID-19 budget proposal. And as you know, this pandemic has had a huge impact in a negative way on the emotional and financial existence of our community. A lot of families are really struggling to find work and to pay their bills. And that's why in my FY21 budget, I've outlined a commitment of more than $4.1 million to support the community's response to the pandemic and address immediate needs facing our residents. The single largest investment is to help with housing. More than 1.1 million would go to direct rent and mortgage payment assistance. And we'll get more into those details later on in the agenda. So another thing that I know some of you have been involved with is our effort to encourage people and normalize the wearing of face coverings. We're trying to be a good example as an employer, making sure our City of Knoxville employees wear face masks when they can't practice physical distancing. So thank you for doing that. If you want to post a photo of yourself wearing a cloth face covering and do a hashtag, show us your mask, and tag the City of Knoxville, that's always good and just gets the word out. We've had Governor Haslam do it, and Congressman Burchett joined us in doing that, Pastor Darrell Arnold, Chief Thomas. I know Councilwoman Ryder posted a picture, and maybe some of you have too. I know I've seen Vice Mayor McKenzie wearing a face mask out and about. So people look to council as role models, and if we do it, maybe that'll encourage other people to realize that this is a way to protect our neighbors. And it's just what I call common courtesy in the COVID era. Like, that's what we need to be doing. Let's see. I wanted to announce that today I appointed Harold Cannon as the new Director of Engineering. Steve King is our interim director, and I know Steve's on this call. Thank you for being a great interim. And Mr. Cannon is going to take office in June. So Steve King remains our acting director until that time, and it will stay on, under Mr. Cannon as well. So Harold Cannon has had an exemplary career, done all kinds of work in the public and private sector, and I'm thrilled that he's joining our team. He's got great relationships and experiences, and has a lot of credibility in the development community and within the City of Knoxville Engineering Department. So welcome to Harold Cannon. I also wanted to give a shout out today to the city's 311 Center for Service Innovation, because the 2 supervisors and 5 customer service representatives that serve in 311 have really, really stepped up during the coronavirus pandemic. And today happens to be their birthday. 15 years ago, May 5th, 2005, 311 launched. So happy 15th birthday. Just a little overview of the caliber and scale of work they do. They assist 100,000 residents a year, answering questions about city services and requests for help for everything from overgrown lots to potholes to missing street signs. Since March, 311 has been a main source of contact for people seeking guidance about how businesses and people are affected by the various state, Knox County Health Department, and city public safety protocols. Russ Jensen and his team had created a chat bot to answer questions about Census 2020. And when the pandemic hit us, they quickly added capacity to that chat bot to answer questions after hours about the pandemic. So thank you to Russ and his team. More recently, 311 has been a resource for businesses and residents as they have questions about the reopening, and also a resource for when they want to report concerns about compliance with the health department guidelines. So just so you know, most businesses, I'm really proud to say that most businesses are willingly complying with the health department regulations. And when we hear concerns, the health department or sometimes city staff go out, and our first, second, and third efforts are all about educating and informing and just building those relationships so they understand why those health guidelines are there in the first place. And you probably know this, but since we've had this pandemic and various public safety regulations, we've had more than 400 complaints come to 311, and of those 400, we've issued 9 warnings and only 1 single civil citation. So the group of people working on enforcement have done a great job on educating and building that up in a positive way. So the other good thing about 311 taking a lot of those calls is that it frees up the health department to answer actual health questions. So if you have questions that 311 can answer about business, about rules and that sort of thing, you call 311 and they can help you. If you have a question about should I get a test or not, that's when you call 215-5555 for your health department specific concerns. So anyhow, just since March, 19,000 total calls received by 311, 7,000 of them have been related to COVID-19. So 120 calls per person per day, and the average wait time is just 30 seconds. And they also, in addition to that, manage the 211 line, which is a way that people can get connected to food resources, mental health services, utility, and rent assistance. So just wanted to say happy birthday to 311, and thanks to Russ Jensen and the whole team. You're doing great work. That concludes my report. And do any council members have reports or committee reports? Ms. Testerman.
So I just wanted to announce that Councilman Smith and I, so during the COVID pandemic and as businesses have started to rephase their openings, there's been a lot of concern that some of the small businesses, either because of financial reasons or because of, just the sheer supply of not being able to secure PPE, we kind of are working together with a group of other individuals and have been able to secure donations of sanitizer, face masks, and are working on some other supplies. But to help create a starter kit, if you will, for these small businesses to at least help them get their doors open. There's a Facebook page that's been created called Small Business Care Knox. And so if there are small businesses out there that either haven't opened or haven't opened as a result or looking to open in the next few days, but are still needing the supplies to be compliant, then they can send a message through that Facebook page and we will direct them to pickup locations, as well as are willing to deliver. And also some of the different Aubrey's restaurants around town will also be set up to take donations for these items, as well as additional cleaning supplies. We're also working to secure no contact thermometers, et cetera. So I know that the state is allocating some masks and other PPE, but again, to kind of help move some of this forward and create access for some of these entrepreneurs and small businesses to get their doors open. Wanted to share that information.
Thank you, Councilwoman Testerman. And you said it was you and Councilman Smith working on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Anything to add, Councilman Smith?
No, I think you covered it. Anybody that wants to help deliver or donate supplies can do so.
All right, thank you. Any other reports from council members?
I just have one more. Southside Flats is the apartments on Chapman Highway that were due to open and have opened. We haven't been able to do a proper welcoming of with a ribbon cutting, but they're open and 40% full. Just as a refresher, this is one of the developments that received the Affordable Rental Development Program funds, and folks can reduce their rent through programs through KCDC. So it's a more affordable housing in South Knoxville. They're 40% full, and that's they open their doors as soon as possible to offset anybody that needed housing during this time. So just good progress for them.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Vice Mayor McKenzie? Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to share with everyone that in partnership with several people to include Cynthia Finch and Dr. Keith Gray, who is the Chief Medical Officer at University of Tennessee at UT Medical Center, we have started a weekly conference call for faith leaders in the African American community. As churches had less restrictions in reopening, we wanted to ensure that the African American community and the faith leaders had accurate and up-to-date information regarding safety measures, because there are a lot of seniors who participate in worship services, and we just wanted to ensure that they have all information that they need, that they have the guidance and direction from the health department as well, And so that's a weekly call that we're going to continue to have, and also allows them to ask questions. And so a lot of collaboration that's going on with the health department. I want to thank Mayor Kincannon for being on that first call and speaking to them, just assuring them and hearing their voices. We will have guest speakers to talk about different subjects. This week, it's going to be around mental health and suicide, as well as we'll ask a guest from the health department to come out and speak. We were able to give statistics on the East Knoxville testing event, the free testing event that happened weekend before last at the Coliseum parking lot. Is we want to make sure that there's adequate access, as we spoke about during our last council meeting, for the African-American community and underserved communities. And so we'll continue to work with them on that as well. But just want to share that information, and I will pass the conference call dial-in along to council members if you would like to participate or listen in. I want to thank Council Member Parker for dialing in. And again, you're not going to be put on the spot to say anything, but sometimes it's good for people, if you're available, to dial in and hear the information, as well as if you have something that you'd like to share with those leaders, because it was about over 50 faith leaders that were able to join that call, and also along with Reverend Charles Lomax, our own Reverend Charles Lomax, who is a member of the mayor's staff here at the city. And Stephanie Welch was instrumental in helping to get our speakers together as well. So just wanted to let you guys know that that is something, an initiative that I have going on to help get information out, and to an avenue for people to be able to ask questions and get clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Okay, let's moving on to item number 8.
8A is a resolution confirming the mayor's nomination to appoint Sandra Korbelik and Karen Adams to seats on the Knox County Planning Commission.
Move to approve.
Approve.
Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by
Second.
Councilwoman Ryder. Any discussion? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 9-0.
10A is a resolution approving an appeal by K. Kennedy, T. Lambden, M. Parker, and B. Linkus of the Board of Zoning Appeals denial of their request for a variance to reduce the minimum distance between a single-family driveway and the intersecting street from 50 feet to 20 feet for corner clearance requirements for property located at 4110 Sevierville Pike, 1st District.
I believe there's some people signed up to speak to this.
Yes, Mayor.
Wait, oh, go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
I was just going to say we have Kim Kennedy and Ann Harmon signed up to speak. Ms. Kennedy wants to speak first. They're speaking in favor of the appeal.
Okay, they're the appellant, the people who are seeking the appeal, the owners of the driveway. They have up to 5 minutes and each. And I'm not sure if anyone, I don't think anyone signed up to speak in opposition.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Kennedy, are you on the meeting?
I have allowed it. She's muted herself again.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Kennedy, thank you for dialing in. You have up to 5 minutes to speak on this topic.
Thank you so much. Dear members of the City Council and Mayor Kincannon, good evening. I hope you and your families are doing well during these trying times. I come before you today to present our reasonings why the variance regarding 4110 Sevierville Pike should be approved. The City of Knoxville Planning and Building Inspection Services are provided to serve the citizens of Knoxville regarding safety. The circular driveway, which was there when we bought the property, is the safest alternative. Parking on the road is a major safety concern. I understand that the issue is the driveway setback. It is recorded that the driveway was previously in the same location. We just paved the driveway to improve the safety and aesthetics of the house. June Street is a divided road. The only way to enter or exit the driveway is coming from Virginia Heights subdivision, not Sevierville Pike. This was before the zoning board, and the vote was divided with no clear determination. There is no recorded accidents of people driving on the wrong side of the road to enter the driveway in the past. If the driveway were at a 50-foot setback, it would not necessarily stop someone from driving up the wrong side of the road to enter. It is assumed that people driving have a valid driver's license and follow the rules of the road. Keeping the driveway where it is the safest alternative to benefit the citizens of Knoxville. The lack of access due to the topography of the front of the property requires that the driveway be in the side yard. June Street is not a thoroughfare. It is a dead-end road. The people driving down June Street are familiar with it being a boulevard. The neighbors in Virginia Heights, as well as Sevierville Pike, have expressed support and have given thanks for us for improving the property value and the aesthetics of our South Knoxville community. I live in South Knoxville. I go to church in South Knoxville. We are community people. My goal and passion for the past 4 years has been the beautification and the improvement of South Knoxville. I was one of the first to transform Sevier Avenue into what it is now. This is my home, and I want it to be beautiful and a place where people can be proud to live. Restoring these homes add value to the entire neighborhood and help stabilize the community in which we live. I am asking you to please grant us this variance for the driveway that already existed and was only paved for the convenience and safety of those who will live there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. The next person speaking on this topic in favor is Patricia Ann Harmon. Ms. Harmon, if you could unmute yourself, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak. Mr. Johnson, is Ms. Harmon on as far as you can tell?
She is. She just needs to unmute herself.
Okay.
No.
Hi, Ms. Harmon.
Okay,
Yeah, we can hear you. And
great.
thank you for calling in. And you have up to 5 minutes. You can start, but state your name and address for the record, please. I think I forgot.
My name is Patricia Ann Harmon. I go by Pat. I live at 3501 June Street. I have owned my home since 1983 and have lived in it continuously since I retired in 2000. I've watched the rehab of the house on the corner there and have been so pleased watching the improvements that they were making. And I was particularly impressed with the change in the driveway because it was gravel and mud before that. When I saw the variance sign come up, I called you. I called the people, and they didn't contact me. I wanted to know what was going on. June Street was established in the 50s and has a total of 14 homes, 12 of which are owner-occupied, so it's not highly traveled. The boulevard entrance area at Sevierville Pike is well defined and I have never seen or heard of anyone having an accident there because they took the wrong way. The improved driveway appears to have a much safer ingress and egress than the previous one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harmon. That concludes the people who've signed up to speak to this. Is there a motion from a council member?
I'll move to grant the approval.
Motion made by Ms. Testerman to approve,
I'll second.
seconded by Ms. Singh. Any discussion?
Can we hear from someone from engineering on this
Yeah.
request?
Or is it Peter Ahrens or engineering or?
Well, or Mr. Ahrens. I thought it was engineering staff, but I think it's
I think
Brian
Mr.
Berry,
Ahrens-
maybe.
Hi, this is Peter. The regulations come out of the zoning code, and they're based on engineering principles to set driveways back from an intersection to 50 feet. And the concern is that if you've got driveways that are closer than 50 feet, it's more inviting for people accessing the driveway to bypass the big loop or the loop going down the boulevard and back. And so there was a concern that was expressed during the BZA hearing that it might be more inviting for somebody to travel the wrong direction on that boulevard road.
So the standard that this is based upon, I know this has come up in multiple other places. The standard this is based upon is an engineering, or it's an across the board standard. It's not just a Knoxville standard. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
That would be my understanding. I might rely on Mr. King.
Mr. King, do you have anything to add to, help us understand this issue?
Yes, this is Steve King in the engineering department.
Can you speak up a little louder? It's hard to hear you.
Okay. Steve King with the engineering department.
That's good.
I think in general, driveways that are located in close proximity to intersections are more of a problem. That's why there is the regulation about the 50 feet of separation from the intersecting streets. Obviously, that's the standard. That's what's in the zoning code. I think council has the opportunity to evaluate this situation and make a decision. But from an engineering standpoint, in general, we prefer not to have intersections, driveways that close to intersections. However, you obviously can take into account the volume of traffic on the street, this being a dead end street. It may be a situation of, you could evaluate whether this is more risky than a situation where there's a greater average daily traffic.
Sorry, Councilwoman.
I'll just one follow-up question, then I'll hand it over. Mr. Ahrens, did they submit plans where they, it looks like from our packet, they didn't submit any plans. That the issue here is that their contractor who laid the driveway did not get a permit or submit any plans, and the parcel goes pretty deep down June. So they had a lot of other options for where to put a driveway on the back of the parcel. Can you clarify that for us?
Sure. It's my understanding that the paving took place without a permit. Obviously, we would have captured that during the permitting process. If you look back at the historical aerial views on KGIS, you can see at various times over the years that people did indeed use it for their vehicles. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was an approved permitted use at those various times. So the situation here is that the driveway was installed, we were notified, we followed up and started bringing them through the process to legalize it. And then we're here today.
Thank you, Mr. Ahrens. Ms. Ryder, do you have any other questions at this juncture?
No, I'll let Mr. Smith have his.
Okay, Mr.
I,
Smith.
I have a question for the appellate, Ms. Kennedy. May I ask why you didn't put the driveway more towards the rear of the property?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, the property was divided. We do not own, let me pull out the plat. We only own, that property only has 53 feet. Well, can I show, can you all see this?
No.
Unfortunately not.
Okay. Okay, it only has 53 feet, where the back lot has 80 feet. So the property was divided in half. So there's very little room for a driveway anywhere else. The whole bottom section of the property is a different lot with a different plat number.
Okay, Mr. Smith, did you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, one more question. I noticed in the packet there were a number of situations along Sevierville Pike where driveways are less than 50 feet from the intersection. And I was going to ask Mr. King, I know you don't maybe not know the history of all of those, but why are there so many examples where that is the case?
Mr. King?
Yes, Steve King Engineering. Those may have been built years ago before these regulations were in place, or they could have been built in the county before this area was annexed into the city. Okay. The situation that we have, you know, when a driveway is constructed or paved or improved, that's when the newer regulations would kick in.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the property, Ms. Kennedy, and you do have some topographic challenges in front of the house where, you know, there's drainage there. There's a big ditch that you couldn't necessarily easily build a driveway directly onto Sevierville Pike. And given the boulevard, I think you're right in the sense that this creates probably the safest alternative or safest driveway in that area possible. So I'm inclined to approve the appeal, but I'll pause for any other questions that any other council members might have.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any other questions from council? Ms. Ryder.
I just want to clarify, Ms. Kennedy. So you purchased the properties together to renovate the house, and they're currently for sale. Are you only selling the house and the lot? You're not selling them together?
No, they are separate. The
So
bottom lot has.
You're keeping the back lot. That's not the current listing.
No, the back lot has already been sold. The back lot has a contract that we are picking up tomorrow. It has already sold.
Okay, so they are separate, and that's why you can't put the driveway back there.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, okay, the part that I'm struggling with is we're being asked to grant a variance retrospectively to correct not getting a permit.
May I speak toward the permit part? First
Sure.
of all, that is my fault, and I want to apologize for that. I never do anything without a permit. Every time I buy a home, I go through city codes. I am friends with the inspectors because I'm always bugging them. Please do an on-site. I need to make sure that everything I'm doing is right. It's very, very important to me that these houses are in excellent condition, that they are up to date with all the codes. We remove all old wiring, which is not necessarily code, but we don't want anything in those homes that are old. We put everything new. And the house that we did previously had the same situation. It had a driveway and we paved it. And in my bad, I had no idea you had to have a permit for a driveway. I know now, and I will never do it again. And I apologize.
Well, I just want to say you do end up, I guess, being the one held responsible for it. But what's really unfortunate is the contractors who do the driveways know this, and they should know better. So,
Well, I'm so sorry, and it will never happen again. I just
Okay.
didn't know.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ryder. Any other questions from council? Ms. Parker, were you signaling? Do you have a question?
More of a statement than a question. This seems like a very reasonable situation where the driveway should be grandfathered in. And that also doesn't seem like repaving a driveway would trigger updated zoning requirements to then apply to your driveway. I don't think many residents would anticipate that. So I'm definitely going to vote in favor of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Parker. Any other questions or comments by council? Seeing none, Mr. Johnson, would you conduct a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 9-0. Thank you. Next item, Mr. Johnson.
11A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Rogers Group Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $3,021,686 for Phase 2 of the 2020 resurfacing project.
Move to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilwoman Ryder. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
11B is a resolution authorizing the mayor to amend contract number C-18-0293 with Barge Design Solutions Incorporated for the First Creek Greenway Broadway Streetscape Project, increasing the contract amount by $15,100 for a new contract total of $293,600.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Councilwoman Testerman, seconded by Councilman Thomas.
Actually, it's Councilwoman Ryder.
Councilwoman Ryder, sorry.
Moved.
Your voice is sometimes, anyhow. Motion made by Councilwoman Ryder. Was it seconded by you, Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Any discussion or questions? Sing.
Thank you, Mayor. When I first saw this on the agenda, my reaction was that this is the wrong time to be doing something like this, but this is just amending it. It's already been in motion since last year. And the other thing I really support about it is I think it's a pathway that can be used for helping people get to where they need to. It's a long Broadway, and I wish a lot more of the greenways were set up that way, that it was also a transportation route. So yeah, I'm in favor of it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Singh. Mr. Thomas, and then Ms. Parker after that.
Yes, this project will connect the Fulton High School Greenway with the First Creek Greenway. And it's designed to make the area in front of the Broadway Shopping Center much safer for pedestrians and bicyclists. And it's been an area that's been prone to accidents and quite dangerous for pedestrians. It came about between a collaboration between the city and the Broadway Corridor Task Force. Councilperson Ryder and myself were both members of that task force. In fact, Councilperson Ryder chaired it for quite a while. As far as the funding goes, it's a grant from the Tennessee Department of Transportation that's going to cover 80% of the cost, and the city will give a 20% matching grant for those who are concerned about funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Thomas. Councilwoman Parker.
I just wanted to clarify, it says the city's match is budgeted in the capital improvements budget. Is that under the current fiscal year or the proposed capital improvements budget?
I will ask Mr. Brace to answer, or Steve King. Someone, I think is this current year, but.
Boyce Evans here.
Boyce? Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you, Boyce.
From Finance Director. That's budgeted in this year.
Awesome. Thank you.
Ms. Evans, Ms. Ryder.
I wanted to tack on to what Councilman Thomas said and Councilwoman Singh said. This is one of the top 3 busiest bus stops in the entire city. So incredible amount of foot traffic, and there's a lot of students that leave Fulton after school. And this particular component of the Greenway addresses a piece that might work out to help with some traffic issues where we've had accidents, including pedestrians that have been hit by cars there at Cecil and Broadway. So there's a lot of things coming together. It's certainly not all ironed out, and it's been a way longer road than one would anticipate to try and make this all gel and one day before I die come together. Not to sound pessimistic.
Councilwoman Parker.
Just another question. There's a lot of excitement about this Greenway improvement from folks that I talk to. And a lot of folks who are asking for it to be extended further once the Hall of Fame Broadway intersection moves forward. Are there talks taking place of continuing this Greenway to like the 6th Avenue area where it can connect up with another Greenway?
Councilman Parker, Thomas, do you want to answer that?
Thank you for that question. There's a comprehensive plan with Knox Greenways to actually make a corridor all the way from Fountain City down to downtown, and it would connect into those areas that you're talking about. So there's a comprehensive plan. It's just a matter of doing it incrementally as we have the money to do it and the time to do it, but the plan is already in place.
Thanks.
I want to thank Mr. Thomas and Ms. Ryder for your work on the Broadway Corridor Task Force, and also Mr. Thomas for your work on the Greenways Commission for many years. These projects take a long time to move forward. So, and all those, and I know you were not alone. A lot of other people have been working on it over the years. So thank you for that. Any other questions or comments before we vote? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Ryder?
Yes.
Councilman Roberto?
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman?
Yes.
Councilman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie?
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
11C is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an easement agreement with the JED Corporation to allow proposed building and site elements of the Cal Johnson building to encroach into Fire Street Alley and City of Knoxville property.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilman Smith. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Johnson, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie?
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker?
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder?
Yes.
Councilman Roberto?
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman?
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
11D is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an easement agreement with VVI Project LLC, allowing improvements to the Holston building to encroach into the Crouch Park extension.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilwoman Testerman. Any discussion? Mr. Smith.
One question for Mr. King. Are you still with us?
Mr. King?
Tommy, go ahead.
Yes,
Tommy,
I'm
this is
here.
David.
Okay. Oh, there he is. I just want to make sure that it was unclear to me in the renderings whether the benches where a lot of folks sit and rest there in Crouch Park on the south side of Crouch Park will remain. Those are going to stay, right?
There's nothing in this proposal that would remove any of those existing benches.
Okay. All right. There's a lot of people that use those benches all time of the day. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on item 11D? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
11E is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute all documents necessary to apply for and, if awarded, accept a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program in the amount of $75,000 with a city match of $7,500 for personal protective equipment.
Move to approve.
Move approval.
Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilwoman Fugit. Any discussion? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
11F is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and, if awarded, accept a grant from the Federal Transit Administration and the Tennessee Department of Transportation to provide funding in the total amount of $351,206 to Knoxville Area Transit for local surface transportation block grant program assistance with an additional city match of up to $39,023 for mid-life bus engine overhauls.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilman Thomas. Any discussion?
I have a quick question.
Sure, Ms. Parker.
If the funds are available in August, does the city match coming from next year's budget?
Mr. Evans? Boyce Evans? I think it's this year's budget, but
Yes, ma'am. Boyce Evans here. All of these FTA grants, in other words, we review all those before they come to you to make sure that the funds are already, that the match that is already budgeted. So yes, this is already budgeted. It's part of what we provide as we supplement CAT operations each year.
Okay, awesome. So it's coming out of this year's budget.
thank you, Mr. Evans. Any other questions? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
11G is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and, if awarded, accept a grant from the Federal Transit Administration and the Tennessee Department of Transportation to provide funding in the total amount of $1,815,617 to Knoxville Area Transit for local surface transportation block grant program assistance with the city match of $201,736.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilman Thomas. Any discussion? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
11H is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and, if awarded, accept a grant from the Federal Transit Administration and the Tennessee Department of Transportation to provide funding in the amount of $5,837,090 to Knoxville Area Transit for Formula Urbanized Area Transit Grant Assistance for fiscal year 2020 with a city match of $648,566.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Parker, seconded by Councilman Thomas. Any discussion? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
11I is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and, if awarded, accept a grant from the Federal Transit Administration and the Tennessee Department of Transportation in the amount of $877,197 for Knoxville Area Transit for Formula Bus and Bus Facilities Capital Grant Assistance for fiscal year 2020 with a city match of $97,466 for a total project amount of $974,663.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Parker, seconded by Ms. Ryder. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
11J is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Goodwill Industries Knoxville Incorporated to provide all personnel, materials, equipment, and supervision necessary to provide recycling, maintenance, customer assistance, and educational services at 5 area locations throughout the city for an annual contract price not to exceed $112,961.27.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Testerman? Who
Yes.
said that? Okay, and seconded by Ms. Ryder. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilwoman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
12A is an ordinance to amend the operating and capital budgets for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Okay, there's someone who signed up to speak to this item.
Yes, ma'am, Miss Barbara Cook.
Barbara Cook, she on the call, on the meeting?
I believe she is. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cook, if you could unmute yourself. We're on item 12A and you've signed up to speak in opposition to this. So please start by stating your name and address for the record, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Barbara Cook. I live at 4221 Chinkapin Lane, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37921. I had sent an email to you, Your Honor, and to all of the council people. And I say good evening to you all. Your Honor, distinguished council members, I really would just like to read this email into the record, please. First, may I say I appreciate the difficult times we are in and the challenges it presents. I realize time is valuable, so in my attempt to make this brief, I hope you will not discount the earnestness of my urging. I read recently that consideration is being given to distribute funds to multiple agencies to provide recognition and relief during this pandemic. I applaud the designation of $500,000 to the United Way. Hopefully, this will get to organizations with boots on the ground. I trust specific direction as to how it should be used will accompany those funds. Let's try staying away from these guidelines that are so often construed as if you like. I take extreme exception, however, to the disparity between and the choice made to consider $124,000 to Second Harvest and only $62,000, half that amount, to CAC, presumably Mobile Meals. I ask you to consider that Second Harvest, as part of the larger Feeding America group, has many, many sources of revenue and donations. It hasn't been that long since Lady Gaga, Ellen DeGeneres, and Elton John teamed up in concert for Feeding America. In addition, just recently, Kroger awarded Second Harvest $15,000 and made them a part of their Roundup campaign. I'm sure they can always use more, but perhaps not just now. I urge you to contact Mobile Meals and inquire as to the additional measures and delivery areas they have had to assume recently. They are delivering to folks that are not within their usual scope in order to fill in gaps for folks who can't make it out to food banks and other resources. Talk about boots on the ground. I realize everyone has had to adjust, but I submit Second Harvest Feeding America has not adjusted or will not be impacted twice as much as Mobile Meals. Please reconsider that disparate distribution proportion. Finally, about the bonuses. Though it is certainly important to recognize those who are on the front lines of contact with potential carriers of the virus, perhaps waiting a bit might be more prudent. Money and resources are going to be strained, and it will certainly benefit everyone in the long haul if we don't distribute it now because we have it now. We are potentially likely to have much greater needs down this long road we are surely likely to travel. We may find that those who have jobs, regardless of how risky they are far better off than the many who are likely to suffer from no job at all and little likelihood of getting back to work soon. Thank you for your time, your consideration, and your service to the city of Knoxville. Y'all stay safe and stay well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cook, for your email and for taking the time to speak on this this agenda item. Council members, I believe you're all pretty familiar with this, but just a quick overview. In addition to the monies that you've already approved in our response to COVID, which 100,000 to CAC, 95,000 to VMC, the guest house, another 116,000 for EOC purchases, and the emergency funding for the zoo. This is an additional $1 million, a little over $1 million. 417,000 of that is a $500 one-time payment for uniform police and fire, who I would love to be able to give that kind of bonus to all our employees, but we are in tight budget times, and I designated it towards them because of the particular challenges they faced when, and the difficulties they face, and they obviously can't not respond to emergencies, even if someone is known as an infected person. So they're on the front lines of dealing with this pandemic. And they're also exempt from the city's policy, where you're allowed to, take more generous leave and so forth. So because of that, I think they are in special consideration. It's not any slight to the rest of our employees who are also working incredibly hard. It also is 200,000 in grants to basic food needs, including, Nourish Knoxville, Mobile Meals, Second Harvest, and that's in addition to other sources of funding that already go to those organizations. And I also just wanted to mention that the 500,000 I'm proposing to go to United Way is being matched by private donations in the same amount. And they are actively distributing funds to numerous local nonprofits. And if this is approved, we would encourage nonprofits interested in applying to contact and go through United Way. So that's just a little overview, and happy to let you guys have your questions and discussion. Ms. Fugit. We can't hear you. Yeah.
Sorry, took my hand off. The 500,000 to United Way, talked about that being matched. Is that a separate match from the fundraising campaign? I saw Matt was on the call at some point. Is that an additional 500,000 above what they're already soliciting from the community, or is that part?
Yep, Matt Ryerson, the head of the United Ways, on the call, so I'm going to let him speak to that.
And then I have two questions. So let me go ahead and ask that as well, Matt, and you can answer it all at one time. And then are the grant applications what you're currently doing right now, or is this a different phase of fundraising and grant requests?
Mr. Ryerson, if you could, unmute yourself and just state your name for the record.
Yeah, this is Matt Ryerson, President and CEO of the United Way of Greater Knoxville. Thank you, Councilwoman. That match is the $500,000, which is actually our current total committed is $516,032, is a part of that fundraising campaign. So that's not a separate dollar amount. That's the effort that we've been putting in place. And then you kind of broke up, Councilwoman. I didn't catch that second question. I apologize.
My second question is, so I assume that this is the same grant process that you're already using with nonprofits. You'll just have additional funds to perhaps fund some grant requests from additional nonprofits or ones who were unable to get earlier funding. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And then just for the record, so everybody is clear, none of this money is going to United Way administration. It is all going direct to agency grants, correct?
Correct. We launched this as a partnership with the Alliance for Better Nonprofits and the East Tennessee Foundation. And our agreement was 100% would go directly to nonprofit organizations directly serving families impacted by COVID-19.
Thank you. I had questions about that. I knew that was the answer, but I wanted you to be able to say that publicly on the record. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councilwoman Fugit. Any other questions? Mr. Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Ryerson, since we have you on the line, can you talk to us as a council about the ways that the United Way will be accountable to this council, given the distribution of these funds, like you said, directly to people in need?
Absolutely. We have a pretty broad partnership with a range of nonprofits, and there is a reporting mechanism that is a requirement for receiving these funds. So we're compiling as we fund an ongoing report to those that are being served. Additionally, we always love, and it's actually a foundational issue of the United Way, and one of the things I'm most proud of is that donors do and should have a say in what their dollars go to. And so we look at this partnership as a great opportunity to meet the needs of the community of the city of Knoxville and have that voice of the city of Knoxville in on that conversation.
Will only traditionally funded groups with the United Way have access to these grants, or will you be expanding that out in a way that maybe previously unaffiliated groups could apply for the funding?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Councilman. No, this is really a separate fund. We view this as a community fund. It was intentional. The alliance with the ABN and East Tennessee Foundation was an effort to really create a community-driven fund, and we feel like really all nonprofits should and can be eligible for this, and that's been the policy from the beginning. And so we have funded to this point, I'm pulling up my number now, a little more than $200,000, $207,500 in grants in a range of nonprofits, about 31 different programs, nearly half of which are not traditional United Way funded organizations. They're independent outside of our traditional cycle of funding.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Testerman.
As you talk about agencies that are providing services highest and best use for the COVID-19 impact, just curious that you also have some agency partners that are being funded individually outside of the United Way allocation. So just trying to better understand and you know, sort of how that may be working with those agencies also part of your network.
Yeah, so, and I'm trying to feel through your question. So if I don't answer it directly, feel free to jump in. You know, one of our goals in the partnership with the Alliance for Better Nonprofits and East Tennessee Foundation was try to be the best stewards of our limited resources as we could, which meant having conversations about who is what, making sure that the program's doing good work, we're receiving funding and trying to push those dollars as far as they could, because there are so many good organizations. But as far as some of the programs that we do traditionally fund, and I'll give you a tangible example, that Boys and Girls Club is an after-school program. One of the challenges they had, and they did come to this fund for additional funding outside the traditional avenue of United Way funding. One of the challenges they had was they were a traditional after-school program servicing from somewhere around 3 to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And when schools closed, rather than them stepping back and closing their doors, they stepped forward to serve essential service workers and expanded their hours. So they were working from 6 in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. Their ratios were much lower because of the standards, so they had to staff up. And those were all unbudgeted expenses. And so when we sat down with them and talked, they were really able to point out how their framework as far as budgeting had really changed significantly, and that supplemental funding was really necessary to keep them able to serve those on the front lines that needed that child care. Councilwoman, I'm not sure that answered your question, though. I wanted to make sure it did.
Let me clarify. I probably didn't clarify well enough. So the city is funding some of your partner agencies over and above outside of the United Way network.
Yes. Okay.
So then those agencies, I guess I'm just asking, will they then be able to apply for part of this fund or the matching fund knowing
Yeah,
that they've
that's
already been received funds directly from the city?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so maybe a great an example of that would be CAC. We've been able to have conversations with leadership in a lot of those nonprofits. We try and really pay attention to where those funding sources are coming from and what balance they have, and trying to track and make sure that A, their needs are being met, and B, that we're not accidentally pouring too much money into one organization because you don't want to cut short another organization that has equal needs. And so I do want to say that our nonprofit partners have been really forthcoming with what their needs are, when they feel like their needs are met, when they feel like they've received enough funding. And to be honest with you, that doesn't happen very often. But we are seeing a real spirit of collaboration in that way, because there are a number of sources, not just in the city of Knoxville, but when you start including like HUD funding and some of the state funding that's available out there, USDA funding, there's a lot of potential funding sources that have been made available. So we're really trying in collaboration with our partners out there to make sure that we're not duplicating funding, we're not overfunding, but simultaneously, as much as possible, making sure that we're meeting the needs of those that are on the front lines really serving. Does that address your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ryder.
Yeah, I know many people on your team, American Cannon, have been working with different groups around the city. I was wondering if I could call on Erin Gill. I think she's been working on that to address some of the food security funding here. Like how often are you talking to them? What's the process been like? How did these asks come about? The amounts? What is going on, and what are they doing, and how are they challenged right now? And are their needs met? And what are the needs?
Thank you, Councilwoman Ryder. Erin Gill, Chief Policy Officer. As you alluded to, there are several city staff members who are actively engaged on a fairly daily basis with many nonprofits across I believe it's 5 working groups that are mobilized through the EOC. In particular with food, the council may be aware that there is actually a long-standing food policy council in Knoxville. It's one of the first food policy councils ever created in the nation. And Fiona McAnally, who is on my team over at the city, and many of you know, she is the staff support for that food policy council. And their mission, as much as it has also related to issues like urban agriculture in recent years, really originated out of this concept of food security. And so as we were mobilizing through the Emergency Operations Center with regard to food security, the Food Policy Council is really ideally situated. It includes not only Fiona as staff support, but many of the partners who are actively engaged in the food system network in Knoxville. Fiona is in daily communication with that food security group that is mobilizing not only through the CAC for seniors, for example, Second Harvest for general population. They are involved with the groups that are serving youth and in coordination with the schools. There's a representative from the Knox County feeding program on that committee. So that committee it existed already, and it really ramped up and was able to respond very quickly and very coordinated to this crisis. So in making the request that you see in front of you for the budget amendment, that was really a pulse on what the needs of the agencies that were mobilized through that emergency operations effort in regards to food security, what gaps still existed, knowing that many of them were able to rely on some of these new funding sources, such as the Feeding America grant program. And so really making sure that we are meeting basic needs first, and food access is chief among those, really making sure that the city was in a position to, if we saw a gap, be able to fill that gap. So in talking with those groups, that is how we arrived at the numbers that you see in front of you for the 200,000 for this fiscal year in the budget amendment. So the 4 groups there being core partners, and that is the amount that they requested to fill that gap that they see in front of them.
So Mobile Meals has really expanded what they're doing, but this is the ask they had to meet that need.
That's right. That's right. Okay. And if you, Barbara Kelly and Kathy Price from Second Harvest are both on, and really want to give them a shout out. Excuse me, Kathy Prince, because they're as you know them. I mean, these organizations, including the senior citizen home assistance service, Nourish Knoxville, all of them have not only ramped up their existing infrastructure, which is very robust, but also been really innovative in thinking about new delivery mechanisms that are specific to respond to the needs of COVID. So both Barbara and Kathy are on if you'd like to get more into those details. But yes, these funding recommendations are based on that request that they made.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gill. Any questions? Yeah, Ms. Parker.
For some of these service providers, particularly Second Harvest Food Bank, I've been getting reports from the community that some of their services have ceased, like delivering meals to assisted living homes. Is this correct, what folks are telling me? And because of that, I'm seeing grassroots groups who are trying to fill in that gap of getting the food delivery out to vulnerable populations that are not being serviced. This is not necessarily specifically the elderly, but vulnerable populations throughout our community. Is that an effort that the city sees as a priority to fund? Or does the city feel like this funding will cover that need?
So with regard to specific services, I would have to defer to Kathy and Barbara, who are on the ground. And obviously this is an ever evolving situation. So I don't want to misspeak based on what I had heard a few weeks ago. So Ms. Kelly, are you available to maybe talk to the services that Mobile Meals is still providing in the delivery and your capacity to continue adding folks to your Mobile Meals delivery should there be a need from a senior citizen? And then similarly, Kathleen, if you could speak to maybe the particular situation that Councilwoman Parker raised.
Ms. Kelly, are you available right now? Ms. Prince, Kathy Prince, if you're available, we'll start with you. You're with Second Harvest. So go ahead, and if you could address Ms. Parker's question and just share with us a little bit about any service issues you guys have had.
Yes, some of our deliveries to some of the towers housing projects were not stopped by us. They were stopped at the request of the management of those facilities. Even after that happened, we still delivered by hand a box to each door for a couple of weeks. From that point forward, they did not want the folks in the building to congregate down in the common areas to come and get the food. And they didn't really want us to bring it in. So we stopped that process, even though we're there, ready, willing, and able whenever they were able to take it again. I did work with Fiona McAnally and some members of the Food Policy Council to kind of formulate a plan for delivery of boxes to anyone who might be in a lockdown situation should there be a positive case of COVID on one of the floors of those buildings. And some of those boxes indeed were delivered. We now have a plan for delivery of those boxes. Second Harvest works through our agencies for delivery of food. We are essentially a food depository. We are actually the source of food for some of the food for Mobile Meals. So we do need to work with community members and realize that we have some work to do and planning for the future should this happen again. Some of our agencies did close, some of our food pantries. Many of them are run by elderly folks who are have a higher risk of catching the disease and having ill effects from it. So once those agencies closed, other agencies picked up a bit. We saw a very high spike in people served at the end of March. That is leveled off a little bit right now, but we expect that to come in waves during the future. We have about $500,000 or more of food on order to come into this building that'll be provided to those agencies at no cost whatsoever. So what we're hoping to do with the Food Policy Council is to develop more procedures for getting the food out if our agencies are closed, and should there be a shutdown situation.
Thank you, Ms. Prince. Ms. Kelly, I see that you're unmuted now. Could you tell us about, mobile meals and service challenges that you're facing or that are being met? Maybe, are you on, Ms. Kelly?
I will say she had texted me she's on a new iPad and was hoping it would work. So if she doesn't come through here in a few minutes, she wanted me to send her apologies. Barbara, Ms. Kelly, are you on?
Well, one thing I think that, Ms. Parker, you raised a good question. What can people do if they are seeing gaps? Should they contact? I mean, one thing is to call 211, and Ms. Prince or Aaron can speak to, what if there's a group that feels like they see a gap? How can they share that gap with people who have food or entities who are willing to sort of bridge that gap and have the resources to do so? Aside from calling 211, should they call Second Harvest directly or call Mobile Meals? What is the advice to the public that we can share?
So Mary, just to jump in there a little bit, I mean, I think you're absolutely right that 211 is one of the first points of contact. However, I will also give a shout out to United Way and the Volunteer Knoxville Coalition that is also mobilized quite significantly to be able to be a clearinghouse for some of those resources. So Volunteer Knoxville and United Way, Matt, you might be able to provide the kind of latest and greatest on how those processes are working. But the important thing to really remember is that if you are a nonprofit who is providing direct services and needs access to food, that there are resources in our community who can provide that food access in a much more cost-effective way than going down to Costco or Sam's Club. And so I think that is the type of system coordination that the Food Policy Council and the Food Security Response Group of the EOC has really mobilized to try to help coordinate. And so I'll leave it to Kathy or Matt to potentially chime in on those exact systems. But what we are very cognizant of is that as those groups mobilize, that providing those resources through these core institutions like Second Harvest and CAC allows a lot of that efficiency and cost effectiveness to translate through a much wider network of nonprofit service providers.
Okay. Ms. Parker, did you have any other things you wanted to? I don't know if that answered your question.
That did answer my question. Thank you. Just on the other part of the proposed ordinance, I've received a lot of concerns about the bonus pay being only for police and fire. And those concerns have been joined with examples of calls to KPD that were not answered. So I just wanted to lift that up because that was one reason given for the bonuses, is that they're not able to not respond now. But I'm actually getting a lot of complaints of KPD not responding. There was a complaint today from South Knoxville for gunshots in a house next door. An hour after calling KPD, they haven't arrived. We saw a lot, well, some folks may have seen videos of different neighborhoods where fights were breaking out and going on for an hour in an area where I usually see a police presence at least 5 blocks away. So it was just unbelievable to me that within that hour, there was not a police cruiser that showed up. So I wanted to lift up those, what folks had shared with me and their concerns, and lift up that, on the other hand, we have, public service workers who come into contact with every housed person through picking up trash, and probably even folks who don't have a house, you know, at least twice a month. And I think that's quite incredible. The trash is where we're throwing all of our potentially infected tissues and materials that we're keeping ourselves clean with. And you know, on top of that, I don't understand our funding for CAT and how we direct those dollars, whether we allocate a certain amount and then CAT decides what to do with it. But a lot of folks are certainly bringing up our bus workers, you know, who are showing up and keeping that essential service going despite the risk. So I just wanted to lift up these other workers who are, you know, also not able to not answer the call, but who are showing up every day and putting themselves at considerable risk.
Thank you, Councilwoman Parker. I totally agree with you that, you know, all our city workers are doing great work and have extenuating circumstances. I just think that our uniform personnel have, you know, especially extenuating circumstances. And the CAT system is a little different. They are a little independent. Ms. Gill or Ms. Roberson, I mean, you know, can explain that in greater detail, but I think they have their own way of paying people that is not directed by the mayor or council. We find, you know, we supplement the budget and some of it's through federal grants, but they have a labor organization and it's just a sort of a different side of things. Do you want to expand on that, Ms. Gill or Ms. Robertson?
This is Erin. I think Melissa may have jumped off after the CAT items, but that is correct. They are technically, CAT is the drivers and the bus operators are not city employees. They are part of the Amalgamated Transit Union and technically accounted by K-Trans. So there is obviously a relationship there, but it is a separate budgeting process.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure who to direct this to. It might be Mr. Brace. It might be Ms. Gill. Could be Boyce Evans as well. It's my understanding that all departments have access to taking 96 hours of paid leave. Is that correct? And if it is correct, are KPD and KFD exempt from those times that they can take off?
That's exactly right. I mean, all of our employees are allowed to do that, except police and fire are not. They don't have that. They're not eligible. We made them exempt because of their role. David, if you want to expand upon that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. This is David Brace, the COO and Deputy to Mayor Cannon. And yes, the FRICA, the federal allowance for employees to take that time, plus additional time at a reduced rate. We met with police and fire. They were exempt because of the nature of their work. And general government employees had the ability to access that added benefit. And they've also, in some instances, have had the ability to obviously work remotely from home. Over 300 employees, our info systems department was able to get them home. And then other situations, Ms. Parker, you're exactly right. Public service workers do collect garbage, and we've been able to add PPE. But you're right, there are employees that are working very hard. But the exemption and the direct exposure for police and fire was a strong basis.
Okay, Mr. Roberto, any other follow-up questions or?
No, I mean, I think we've gone through a pretty good discussion of, I think there's a lot of need out there. I don't think anyone's debating that. There's a lot of people who are, our neighbors who are really struggling, in a lot of different ways. And then we have, an opportunity as well, to, help out members of, the city team that aren't able to participate in that, paid time off like everyone else can. So, I can understand, certainly some discussion on this, but I think this one needs to be approved. So I'll move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Councilman Roberto, seconded by Vice Mayor McKenzie. Ms. Singh. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was saying that I still had discussion unless Councilman Roberto was calling the question.
Okay. Yeah, please, more questions or discussion. Yeah.
I also had trouble seeing what was going to the police department and the fire department as a bonus. And in speaking with people, that 96 hours and what the rest of the city employees are getting, that they are not, to me, makes it not as much of a bonus, but to try to make them a little bit closer to whole with what everybody else is getting. I also wanted to comment on a couple days ago on Facebook, I guess it was in the parade, there was this huge tank looking like thing. And the optics of that at this time, a lot of the comments were thinking that it was bought brand new and by city monies. So I just wanted, I talked to Erin Gill about that earlier, if she wouldn't mind commenting on these things.
Sure. Well, and I would very much want to defer to Chief Thomas, who knows the ins and outs, but the particular points of, and I always forget, the general something vehicle. That's got a funny acronym.
General purpose vehicle.
General purpose vehicle. Correct. So it has actually been part of the city's fleet for well over a decade. So it is in no way a new vehicle that was purchased recently, certainly not one that we spent money on during this pandemic. And similar to the big honk, its, I think, most used purpose is to either be in parades or to protect events. So Chief Thomas, maybe you can answer kind of some of the specifics, but especially in light of some of the special event hazards and people.
Go ahead and order.
Oh, I think we might finally have Ms. Kelly on. But anyway, it is a barricade and used regularly to protect special event goers. And I'll defer to Chief Thomas for more details.
Chief Thomas? Is Chief Thomas on?
Yes, I'm sorry. I couldn't get myself unmuted. Yes, that's exactly right. This vehicle was purchased in 2003 following 9/11 with some Homeland Security funding grant funds that were given to us. It's a regional vehicle. It's able to be used anywhere in East Tennessee. It is simply maintained now. It's totally paid for. The maintenance is averages a little over $1,200 a year, and average maintenance on a police car is about $1,000 a year. So you can kind of gauge what we spend on that, but it is used as a rescue vehicle. And, as Ms. Gill said, as Deputy Mayor Gill said, it is used to protect people, mainly at protests or First Amendment gatherings, to protect people who are there to assert their rights or counter protesters. So that's about how it's used. Yeah, we've decided after this that it will no longer be used in parades or public gatherings for that matter.
Yep, Councilwoman Singh, just so you know, thanks for bringing, raising those questions and giving Chief Thomas an opportunity to address them. I realize that in hindsight, the optics were not, were suboptimal, and that sends a message that I don't want to send. Our police are there to keep the peace and to be guardians of our community. We're not the military, and that vehicle is sends a different message, and I think that's not the message I want to go to the community or to potential recruits who I want to join the police force as like I said, keepers of the peace and community based and people who reflect our community and are trusted by our community. And that vehicle may have a role in terms of very limited role in terms of protecting people, but it's not going to be in parades anymore. And just for the record, I also rode in a fire truck and some other things. It was an event to sort of celebrate and honor the health department. So anyhow, thanks for posing those questions, and thank you, Chief Thomas, for the information.
So essentially it's a vehicle or something that is offensive, not defensive, or the opposite.
Well, Chief Thomas describes it as a defensive vehicle. If there's an active shooter situation, police can be inside that and, be protected. Someone told me that a vehicle like that was used at the Orlando tragedy at the Pulse nightclub when they wanted to break down a wall and let people get out. But it's not a type of vehicle that you use every day. It's something that's hopefully very rarely used, and it's not something that we need to showcase in a parade-like setting.
I don't think it's helpful for community relationships at all. Thank you.
I agree.
Could I add something quickly?
Yes.
I would really like us to have some guidelines in place of when that vehicle is used. I first saw that vehicle in 2016 when I was on my way to a protest with high schoolers in flip-flops. That vehicle scared the mess out of me. I felt like I was under attack by my own city. I did not know if that vehicle was going to open up and start shooting folks. These are the thoughts that were going through my head when I saw that vehicle on my streets because of a protest of 15 high schoolers. It wasn't even that many high schoolers. 15 people total on Magnolia Street Avenue. So I just wanted to emphasize that I don't think it's enough to say we don't use it in parades. I would like for us to not use it against our own citizens for intimidation purposes, for whatever purposes. If there's an active shooter situation and police need to take cover, that makes sense to me. If 15 teenagers are gathering on the corner of Magnolia and Cherry Street, we don't need that vehicle out.
Thank you, Councilwoman Parker. I'll ask Chief Thomas to share with council what the parameters are that she has for that, and we can, just review those. So Chief Thomas, if you could just get back to us, what we can talk about when, but sometime maybe between now and the next council meeting.
Of course, I'll be glad to do that.
Okay. What Ms. Kelly from CAC has been able to unmute herself. So she wanted to clarify a particular thing that was in the food security discussion before. Ms. Kelly, are you?
Hopefully I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Your voice is unmistakable.
Okay. Yes. My after being here for 50 years, my New York accent prevails. So anyway, with regard to mobile meals, I just did want to make sure that we didn't leave anybody with a misunderstanding. During this period of time, we have in the Mobile Meals Kitchen, prepared over 84,000 meals, and we have delivered 37,831 mobile meals and about 6,000 congregate meals. During this period of time, we have also added about 150 mobile meals recipients to our group, bringing the total to around 1,500. Well, that 150 that we've added, that's going to be increased costs, which really were not reflected at the time. We gave kind of a short-term estimate on our need. So we at CAC fundraise for mobile meals all the time. And so this is going to be an ongoing effort to fund these meals. We will be requesting funding from the United Way. We will be requesting funding from the general public. We will be using our federal funds, and it's an ongoing effort. So there is not like it would be great if we had a way to say, this is the budget for next year and it is totally funded, and we really don't have to be concerned about fundraising going forward. But I didn't want anyone to have a misunderstanding that the money that's being provided through the request that was made, that's being considered this evening, is really very, very important to us, but it is not the whole deal. and you will continue to see fundraising efforts on behalf of Mobile Meals and on behalf of other activities that we provide at CAC, because it takes both our federal funding, our funding from our local government, and our private funding to really cover all of the work that CAC does in the many areas that we work in.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Any other questions on item 12A? Mr. Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I want to, I'm really glad that the discussion came up about the vehicle. You know, I think that was a really good discussion. And, you know, having some, I think maybe at a later date, having Chief Thomas talk to us about the parameters for which that might be deployed, and certainly the concern that I think everyone has expressed tonight about that vehicle and how it could be misinterpreted, I guess. But also wanted to, going back on this particular item, you know, we've got a very serious need out there in our community, and I think we've had a really good discussion. I know the motion's been made and it's been seconded, but you know, this may be something that we want to act on quickly. And so, you know, I'd make a move to move this on emergency so that we can go ahead and get these funds out into the community as quickly as possible. Procedurally, that will require a vote of yes from all council members. So, you know, if everyone's in agreement with moving forward, I'd be happy to bring that motion.
Council members, do you want to show of hands whether you want to read it on emergency, or we can go through the motions and a roll call and see? We'll do that.
We would have to amend.
Yeah, a substitute motion or an amendment?
No, it would be amending to make an emergency. The vote would have to be 6, not unanimous.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there's Councilman Roberto is proposing an amendment to make this vote on emergency basis. Is there a second to his motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Smith. Any discussion on this amendment to make this on an emergency basis? Mr. Thomas.
Yes, since it's the issue is whether it's on an emergency basis, just for clarification, is there any more discussion that we feel like we need on this issue? Anybody have anything else to say? That's
well,
all.
I'm not in support of it, so I'm not going to be voting in favor of it. I'm not in support of how the funding is allocated and to whom, but otherwise.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, we're voting on the amendment to hear this on an emergency basis. Will you do a roll call vote, please, Mr. Johnson?
Councilman Roberto?
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Testament?
Yes.
Councilman Thomas? Councilman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie?
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker?
No.
Councilwoman Ryder?
Yes.
Okay, the amended motion to read this on an emergency basis passes 8-1. And now we go back to the original motion. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am, as amended.
Okay, now back to the original motion as amended. Any further discussion before we go to this final vote? It's going to be read just one time since it's an emergency basis. Seeing none, Mr. Johnson, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilman Roberto?
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman?
Yes.
Councilman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
No.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 8-1. Next item, please.
12B is an ordinance making and fixing the annual appropriations for the several departments, agencies, and funds of the City of Knoxville for the fiscal period beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021.
Mayor, before we go into the motions and approvals, I'd like to ask Mr. Frost if he could maybe give some context to item B and C, 12B and C for us, please.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I emailed this out to council last week, but I also understand it didn't go out to the public. And this gives a little background for the procedure tonight and the procedure coming up next week. In the charter, section 901, section F, as in Foxtrot, says after the E is an echo, the council shall pass the budget ordinance on the first reading, and thereafter the council shall hold public hearings on the proposed operating budget as well as on the capital improvement budgets. So tonight, the charter requires council to pass the amendment. Then next Thursday and Friday, we'll have a little more than a day and a half of the city council budget hearings. And that's when everyone is able to ask questions of the respective department heads and really get down in the weeds. I'm guessing not all department heads are at the council meeting tonight. So you might have a question that someone's not here to answer, but they will definitely be there either Thursday or Friday of next week, according to the schedule that Mr. Johnson has put out.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Frost. Vice Mayor McKenzie, did you have any, did you want to make a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Okay. Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Fugit. Ms. Singh.
I have a question for Mr. Frost, please. Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay. So if it is necessary, mandatory for us to approve this, why do we need to have a vote on this?
Well, it's being heard on 2 readings.
I mean,
So
this first reading.
Yeah, this first reading, that's just what the charter prescribes, that it shall be passed on first reading. And then the discussion occurs at the city council budget workshops or budget hearings.
It just seems that there's not really a point in asking us for our vote if it's mandatory that it pass. Just noticing that. Thank you.
I understand.
Mr. Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. I need to disclose that my wife works at the Muse, and she's worked there for about 10 months. The funding that is in the budget for the Muse does not affect her employment, and she was not involved in the request for these funds, which are the same as the amount allotted for them the year before. Therefore, I intend to vote on this item.
Okay, Ms. Parker.
There's a note in our packet.
You have to wait an hour to get it taken out.
A note in our packet that we have $60 million in capital funds that will be allocated in the upcoming year, but it's not included in this budget because it's already been approved. Is there any way for us, especially new council members, to get a list of what those projects are that the 65 million include?
Yeah. Mr. Evans, our acting finance director. Did you speak to that? And
what I think you're referring to, ma'am, is funds that have been appropriated in the past, I would presume,
Yes.
in capital dollars, because capital dollars, they don't lapse like the operating dollars do at the end of the year. So there very well could be, you know, that amount going forward for other for things that have already been approved. Assuming that's what we're talking about, absolutely we can get the list.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Johnson, would you take a roll call vote?
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
No.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Is that everybody? Okay. The
Yes, ma'am.
motion carries 8-1. And I look forward to a full discussion. It's a big document. You know, you all have a hard copy for the public. It's available online. We'll be discussing it at length next Thursday and Friday, and then again at second reading. Next item, please.
12C is an ordinance to levy a tax on all taxable properties, real, personal, and mixed, within the corporate limits of the city of Knoxville to provide sufficient revenues to fund the general fund and debt service fund operations and debt service obligations of the city of Knoxville for the fiscal period beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021.
Council, just so you know, this just means there's no tax increase. And
Move to approve.
thank you,
Second.
Council. Motion made to approve by Councilwoman Ryder, seconded by Vice Mayor McKenzie. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Johnson, would you take a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
12D is an ordinance to amend sections 2-450, 2-458, and 2-459 of the Code of the City of Knoxville to adjust the City of Knoxville's classification and compensation plans for general government, police, and fire employees.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilman Thomas. Mr. Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure who to direct the question to, but I
Dr.
was wondering, I'm sorry?
Dr. Vicky Hatfield is here.
Dr. Hatfield, can you address how many employees or how, if there's examples of employees that have reached the midpoint?
Sure. Vicki Hatfield here, Civil Service Director. That is not a number I would be able to give you right off the top of my head, but if it's something I could pull in about 5 minutes. So I can definitely have that for you at my budget hearing next week, if that's good, or I can email it to all of you guys tomorrow. It's just a simple query that I can pull to see how many employees are actually at or above midpoint.
That'd be great. Maybe send us the email so we have that information leading into the hearings. Thank you.
Certainly will.
Thank you, Ms. Hatfield. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Johnson, would you conduct a roll call vote?
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Oh, yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Yes.
Not everybody? Nine,
Yes.
I know. Motion carries. Next item, please.
Ordinance 12E is an emergency ordinance enacting a moratorium of 90 days upon any actions of the Public Property Naming Committee and any new applications of this committee under the present ordinances and policies.
I'm going to make a motion, motion a second then.
Who made the first motion to approve? I didn't.
Vice Mayor McKenzie.
Okay, motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilwoman Ryder. Any discussion?
I'll just
explain this?
Yeah, I'll explain a little bit. We had a moratorium, and then the MPC or the PC had some recommendations for some revisions to the guidelines we used for applications, and those came to me shortly before the pandemic started. And so we just haven't had time to have some discussions, and I think there need to be revisions of this committee and standards that we use for applications to it that I would like to discuss with different members of the administration. So I need a little more time to make that happen.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ryder. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none. Oh, does someone have a question?
I found it concerning to find this agenda item on today's agenda because it's time for me to make my appointment to the committee, and this is delaying my ability to make that appointment. And I believe my appointment would affect our chair's ability to stay on the committee.
I'm actually term limited, so you don't have to kick me off. I'm term limited by the ordinance. So things need to happen quickly. And what needs to happen is I need to have a discussion with the recommendations from the Planning Commission. Based on recommendations, they basically did a review of what other cities were looking at for applications. We had a confusing set. We had a very confusing process. Before you were on council, the ordinance asked for renamings of existing roads to come to the Public Property Naming Committee. And those weren't being sent to the Public Property Naming Committee. They were being advertised as coming to council and skipping the Public Property Naming Committee. So I was trying to iron out with the Planning Commission to basically alleviate that. We had a lot of public members that were coming down anticipating their agenda item to be heard at council. And unfortunately, we were having to delay those items and ask members of the public to go to multiple meetings that were delayed. And so this item was initially on a moratorium in the fall, in October or November, I believe. And the recommendations were not given to me from the Planning Commission until early March 2nd or March 3rd. And due to various schedules, I just have not been able to make the changes and look at the recommended changes and get them ironed out. So I am in no way, I'm not able to hold the seat past, I believe, June 2nd. And I don't believe that, I mean, we don't have to have it to be 90 days. I think we really need to look at how this committee works. To be blunt with you, what happens right now is we get applications for honorary renamings, and members of the public that are on the committee take time out of their schedule. They leave work early, they come down, and the meetings last 5 minutes. So it's really not an effective use of people's time. I don't mind coming down and finding a parking space to be there for 5 minutes, but I think that's not a kind use of people's time. And so what we were trying to do is not waste people's time. People who are coming to council meeting and their agenda item wasn't being heard, people who come to PPNC meeting and they're there for 5 minutes and then they leave. It took them longer to park than the meeting actually took. So that I think in discussion, the 90 days was proposed, and the off chance that it took 90 days. But I'm happier to wrap it up sooner.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ryder. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Johnson, would you conduct a roll call vote?
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
No.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-1. Next item, please.
12G is an ordinance to amend several articles of the Knoxville City Code Appendix B zoning code to correct drafting errors and to provide for additional clarity. City of Knoxville applicant, all districts.
Is there a motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Mr. Roberto. Are you seconding this?
I've got a statement, maybe question.
Who's going to second this motion?
I may have a substitute motion.
Are we on agenda item E?
G.
G is in Georgia.
Oh, never mind. I'll
So the motion has been made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie.
I'll second.
Nobody seconded it, so okay. Councilman Smith seconded it. Mr. Roberto, you wanted to comment and or make a substitute motion.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think this one probably should have been included in the needs more time for some community engagement. I think that the lighting issues have been, pretty well answered. I had some questions for Director Ahrens today on that, but some of the items, including drainage easements and constructing, objects in those easements, is still a little bit of a concern. I did get, some kind of last minute comments on potential changes, but I haven't had a chance to really consider those. I do think this one's an important one for some more community engagement on. And so my substitute motion would be to postpone it for 2 weeks like we did the others.
I'd like to second that substitute motion.
Okay, motion is made to postpone it for 2 weeks by Councilman Roberto, seconded by Councilwoman Ryder. Any discussion on the substitute motion to postpone? Councilman Thomas.
Yes, I would be in favor of postponing it. It seems like we ought to hear it together with the other two matters that were already postponed. So let's just postpone it and hear them all together.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion to postpone, which I'm told is a priority motion, not a substitute motion? I'm not sure what that means, but maybe I'm waiting to get a response, but I think we can still move forward with the discussion. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, then let's go ahead and vote on the priority motion to postpone for 2 weeks on item 12G.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. We'll move on to that's not an amendment, it was a priority motion, so we're just moving on to the next agenda item.
Yes, ma'am.
Postpone for 2 weeks.
12I is an ordinance to amend the Knoxville City Code Appendix B zoning code, Article 11.4.B, to reinsert language from the previous code, providing the Director of Plans Review and Building Inspections the authority to interpret off-street parking requirements for uses not specifically mentioned. City of Knoxville applicant, all districts.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve by Councilman Roberto, seconded by
Second.
Councilwoman Ryder. Any discussion?
I'm curious what triggered this, or what would be an example of when this would apply?
Is Gerald Green on the call, or Peter Ahrens? Is this something?
Yes, ma'am. This is Gerald Green, Director of Knoxville, Knox County Planning. It would be for a use that possibly a new use, a new type of business that for which the parking wasn't specifically identified in the code. This provision would enable the Director of Plans Review and Inspections to look at similar uses, identify their parking requirements, and make an interpretation regarding the parking requirement for the new business.
Any other questions or discussion, Ms. Parker, or any other council members? Okay, seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
12J is an ordinance to amend the Knoxville City Code, Appendix B zoning code, Article 2.3, to add definition for full summer pool, City of Knoxville applicant, all districts.
Move to approve.
I'd like to make an amended motion.
Well, wait, someone just made a motion to approve. Is that you, Mr. Thomas? Or Mr. Roberto? And now there's, instead of a second, Ms. Ryder, you want to make an amended motion or a substitute?
Yeah, could I have just a moment before we consider seconding Mr. Roberto's motion? In discussion with Mr. Green, he said there was an error that needed to be fixed in this particular agenda item. If you look at 12J, this one is it specifies that is to add full summer pool as a definition, but it needs to be and replace the words full summer, or I'm sorry, high water mark with full summer pool. So it's a typographical error, and the ordinance as stated is just to approve the definition, but it needs to be approve the definition and replace the words high water mark with summer, full summer pool. So that would be the amended motion.
Okay, thanks for the clarifications, Councilwoman Ryder. Does everyone understand her amended motion? Is there a second to her motion to amend?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councilman Roberto. Okay, the motion on the floor is to change, to basically fix the typo. Add the words replace higher water for full summer pool. Like it's that whole phrase. Does everyone understand the change? Any questions? Okay. Would you please take a roll call vote, Mr. Johnson, on the amendment?
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries, the amendment carries 9-0. Now we're back to the original motion as amended with the new language. Any discussion?
I think we only had a motion. We didn't have a second.
Had the motion.
I'll
Okay.
second Councilman Roberto's motion.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Now that,
Wait,
Okay, Mr. Johnson, did you have do we need to fix something parliamentary wise?
No, ma'am. I thought Councilwoman Ryder made the original motion, the main
So we
motion.
don't need to
but-
vote again. It's done.
No, you do. Yeah.
Okay, so the new
Councilman Roberto made the original motion and
I see.
and it hadn't really been seconded, but now, okay. So the motion as amended is on the floor. This is made by Councilman Roberto and seconded, amended, and then seconded by Councilwoman Ryder. Does everyone understand what we're voting on? Any questions? Okay, please conduct a roll call vote on the amended motion, item 12J.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilwoman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder.
yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
12K is an ordinance approving a minor amendment to the City of Knoxville zoning ordinance to Article 17.1, creating a new subsection F to be entitled Damage or Destruction of Non-Conforming Structures, City of Knoxville applicant, all districts.
Is there a
Move to
motion?
approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Councilman Roberto, seconded by Councilwoman Ryder. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please respond to the roll call vote.
Councilman Roberto,
And those
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker.
Yes.
Was that a yes, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. Councilwoman Ryder.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. Next item.
12L is an ordinance approving the revised request of Marty Norton for an amendment to the North City Sector Plan from low-density residential to light industrial for property located at 3309 Mill Road and a portion of 3313 Mill Road, parcel ID numbers 59019 and 018, respectively, 4th District.
Okay, Ms. Ryder.
Yes, I just wanted to, before anybody ran to make a motion, I wanted to say that I would like to make a motion to pass this on an emergency. This is items L, M, and N. If my colleagues remember, this was on agenda about 6 weeks ago, and this is where we made some amendments, sent it back to MPC. So the parties came to an agreement over the amendments. It went back to MPC. There was no dissent. Mr. Norton, the property owner, is on the call if anybody would like to speak to him, but all parties seem to be amicable and everything went through on consent at MPC. So since this has been very publicly vetted over multitudes of meetings, I think passing out an emergency is reasonable.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made to hear item 12L on emergency.
We need a, I'm sorry, we need a main motion first, and then we'll go to amend it after that.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to pass this.
Second.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Ms. Ryder to approve, seconded by Ms. Fugit. And now is there an amendment?
Then I'll make the motion to do it on emergency.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion made, motion made to amend it to read this on emergency, made by Ms. Fugit, seconded by Ms. Singh. Any questions about the amendment to hear this on emergency? Seeing none, please conduct.
Well, I had a quick question.
Okay.
Since Councilperson Ryder was talking about 3 items, is it possible to do them all at once?
It's fine with me.
Council, Mr. Frost, is that reasonable?
I think you can. It'd be expedient, and they're all closely related to each other. You can't, you need to consider them as a whole. You can't, pass them one, an emergency than the others differently. It cause a little issue.
Maybe.
Do we amend the original emergency reading, or the original motion, or do we make another vote to vote on these as a group?
I think you should move to consider them and vote on them as a group.
Okay, I will make a motion to vote on them as a group.
And I will second that. Then I will make the motion that we do it all as an emergency.
Okay, so
I'll second that.
the motion on the floor.
As further clarification, this was originally heard.
We lost you.
Then let's just keep going.
Okay, well, now that the lawyer's quiet, we can.
The lawyer's gone. Let's just vote.
I believe what he was trying to say is this was originally heard publicly January 9th. So it's been many months.
I believe he's back with us.
Mr. Frost, did you want to add anything?
I apologize. I don't know what happened to my connection, but yes, this was originally considered NPC on January 9th. So it's actually been around even a longer period of time. Thank you.
Okay. So City Council lawyer says we can lump these three together. And the motion on the floor is to consider them all together. It's been, the motion was made by Councilwoman Ryder, seconded by Councilwoman Fugit, I think. Any questions about this motion? Once we vote on this, then we'll come back to consider all three as an emergency, the lumped in ones. Okay, roll call vote on lumping them, all three. I think that, is that how to do it, Rob or Will?
I think lumping is a very formal word. Yes.
let's
Okay.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Yes.
Councilman Roberto.
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman.
Yes.
Councilman Thomas.
I think lumping is actually Latin, is it? I think, but yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie.
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker.
Yes.
Okay, motion to consider 12 L, M, and N as a collection passes 9-0. So we're going to be considering them all at once. Is there a motion to hear them on emergency basis?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made to hear it on an emergency by Councilwoman Fugit, seconded by, was that Mr. Smith?
Roberto.
Roberto. Seconded by Mr. Roberto. Any questions about hearing this on an emergency? Seeing none, Mr. Johnson, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie.
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Yes.
Councilman Roberto.
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder, or excuse me, Testerman.
Yes.
Councilman Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, the motion to hear it on emergency is approved, 9-0. Now, do we have to vote one more time? Okay.
Yeah, and we already have motions, so just a roll call vote.
Roll call vote on this topic.
It's the actual motion.
I'm not sure this was faster.
I tried.
Okay, we're voting on, you all are voting on L, M, and N on first an emergency reading, and the motion is made to approve it. It's been seconded. Roll call vote, unless there's any questions.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Yes.
Councilman Roberto.
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman.
Yes.
Councilman Thomas.
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. On to the next item.
One moment, we're
Just
all
the
over
next,
the place.
next three
Should be
items.
12-0, I believe.
Yeah. I was just
12.
going to say, OK and Q has someone here to speak in favor if need or to answer questions.
Yes, ma'am. 12-0 is an ordinance approving the request of Andrew Harper for an amendment to the East City Sector Plan from low-density residential to medium-density residential for property located at 4318 Washington Pike, 4th District.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion made to approve by Councilwoman Ryder, seconded by
I'll second.
by Ms. Testerman. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker.
Yes.
Okay, 12-0 passes 9-0. Next item.
12P is an ordinance approving the request of Andrew Harper for a one-year plan amendment from low-density residential to medium-density residential for property located at 4318 Washington Pike, 4th District.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Councilwoman Ryder, seconded by Councilwoman Singh. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
12Q is an ordinance to rezone property located at 4318 Washington Pike from RN1 District to RN4 District. Andrew Harper, applicant, 4th District.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Councilwoman Ryder, seconded by Councilwoman Singh. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Next item.
12R is an ordinance approving the request of the City of Knoxville for an amendment to the Central City Sector Plan from Mixed Use Special District Magnolia Gateways to open space for property located at 0 East 5th Avenue, 6th District.
Mayor, I'd like to ask, before we have a motion, I'd like to ask Stephanie Welch if she would please give us an overview and speak to items R and S, just for clarity, what these mean, please.
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you, Ms.
if you can hear me. Yes, yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Vice Mayor McKenzie. I'd be happy to speak to these items. Some of you may remember, and probably most everybody on this call remembers, that these lots, these particular lots were part of the discussion about the Volunteer Ministry Center's proposed permanent supportive housing development on East 5th Avenue. There was quite a bit of concern about these particular lots being included in that development, as they were purchased to be as part of the redevelopment of that park. So at the request of the community and with some pretty good dialogue between stakeholders, this
these lots are being rezoned or, will be open space. So that's basically what this is about, is at the request of the community, making sure that these particular lots will be zoned appropriately for to open space.
Thank you, Ms.
you.
Welch.
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKenzie, did you have any other follow-up questions for Ms. Welch or clarification?
No, no. And I just want to thank you, Ms. Welch, for your assistance in helping to get this worked out with the community as well, and the community for their willingness to work together and collaborate. And so with that said, I will move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve, seconded by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Mr. Thomas. Any discussion on item 12R? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilwoman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
12S is an ordinance approving the request of the City of Knoxville for a one-year plan amendment from mixed-use special district Magnolia Gateways to open space for property located at 0 East 5th Avenue, 6th District.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilwoman Singh. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Next item, please.
12T is an ordinance approving the request of the Knox County Planning for an amendment to the Northwest City Sector Plan from agricultural conservation to heavy industrial for property located at 4295 Middlebrook Farm Way, 6th District.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilman Smith. Any discussion or questions?
I guess we haven't had any community members come forward to speak on this or raise any questions about this change?
No.
That's correct. This is Gerald Green, Director of Knoxville, Knox County Planning. The property is surrounded by industrial uses in Edge House Drive, Middlebrook, Highway Railroad, Interstate. The only adjacent non-industrial or non-transportation related property owner is actually our property is actually owned by the owner of this property. It's Middlebrook Plantation. The development of this property as commercial or industrial will enable a trust fund to be set up to preserve the Middlebrook Plantation, about 20 acres in the old home. The property was actually rezoned C6 some years ago and allowed industrial uses, but the underlying sector plans and one-year plans were not revised or amended at that time to enable that C6 zoning. And so this is changing to the next three actions will change the zoning to a comparable zone to that before the new zoning ordinance and also correct the sector plan and the one-year plan.
Thank you.
Yeah. With that said, is it appropriate to combine all three of these together?
I think let's avoid the lumping. I think it might be more trouble than it's worth.
Okay.
I think it's just sort of confusing, and
okay,
I
no
think
worries.
it'll actually be faster if we do.
Okay, let's go for it.
Okay, is there any further discussion on item 12T? Seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh.
No.
Is that no, ma'am?
Yes, correct. No.
No. Okay. Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Is that it? Was that everybody?
Yes, ma'am. The vote was 8-1.
8-1. The motion carries. Next item, please.
12U is an ordinance approving the request of Knoxville, Knox County Planning for a one-year plan amendment from agricultural conservation to heavy industrial for property located at 4295 Middlebrook Farm Way, 6th District.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilwoman Ryder. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
No.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-1. Next item.
12V is an ordinance to rezone property located at 4295 Middlebrook Farm Way from IMU District to IH District, Knoxville, Knox County Planning applicant 6th District.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Vice Mayor McKenzie, seconded by Councilwoman Testerman. Any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, please conduct a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilwoman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Yes.
Councilman Roberto,
Yes.
Councilwoman Singh,
No.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Testerman,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 8-1. That concludes our agenda items, and now we have, what's that? We have 4 people signed up for public forum. First person is Constance Every. Miss Every, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay. You can start by saying your name and address for the record, and you have up to 5 minutes.
All right, my name is Constance Every, 301 North Charlie Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee. And my concerns are really more into the aspects of the budget. I have looked through the 145 pages of it. And the reality is that, first off, I'm gonna take a pause and say, Amelia and Gwen, I appreciate you guys, all that you do. But I'm also gonna say that you don't always have to vote yes. Sometimes you can abstain to vote. So just keep that in mind. But what I have realized is that just because you're educated does not mean you are intelligent. You all and many people of the local government here are very educated individuals, but intelligence, I question continuously. The biggest concern is the $58 million that we're giving to the police department. You already know. I am not pleased to see that, especially after the most recent escapade of the police vehicle that we are still trying to understand of the usage and necessity. I'm pre-military, previous military. Are we shooting RPGs and throwing hand grenades and watching out for rocket launchers and other things that we would need an up-armored heavy vehicle of that necessity? No, we're not. So really, it is what it is, which is a form of intimidation to show that we are militarizing our police forces against citizens. It's a lot of things y'all could have spent that $58 million on. For example, why not give it to the personnel services of the budget? That's what Amelia was talking about. Those are those trash can people. I'm sorry, for the waste conception people, other people of that nature. That is for the people that's got to go down into Tent City and clean out the porta potty areas and things of that nature. That is for the people that are on the front lines actually facing coronavirus day in, day out, because they're dealing with the public interactions, while you all sit at home in your comforts of your bedrooms and other areas. You could have given the money to Park and Recs. Y'all only gave $90,000 total to Park and Rec. And since y'all like to pilot things so much, you could have pilot with maybe AT&T and Comcast for some type of internet broadband service for the inner city students. And then maybe even could have ran like a laptop rental program so that they can have access to the online educational resources while our schools are closed and we figure out if we can even open up in August of the coming school year. Be resourceful with the money, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. You had no problem with giving money to big nonprofits, which is still a concern. Why does United Way need $500,000? They are a national-based billionaire organization. They are billionaires in the game. They don't need our little tax dollars. You could have gave that money to CAC, who's providing rent services right now. You could have contacted Stan Johnson at Seed, and he could have been providing utility service right now. Let's set our people up to win. As we already all know, people are losing out here because they can't work as we speak. Be intelligent with the money. This is taxpayer funding. This is not your money. This is our money. And then the one thing that you could have actually spent the money on, you're not. How about put the body cameras on their chest? You only spent about $750,000 towards that, but they getting $1 million raises? No, put the $1 million towards the body cameras that we keep saying we want. That's actually something we say we do. You know, when you do that, insanity. Then you want to talk about improving community relations? Well, we know that wasn't a way to do it, but let me tell you how you probably could have done it. How about some diversity ethnicity training for the police department? You want to invest in something to improve community relations? That'll be a big start. Let's be biased in our recruitment. How about we get some African Americans, some Asians, some Arabs, some Latinos, and Hispanics on our police force in the next recruiting class, the entire class. I think we got enough white males running around the community as we speak. And then if you want to do something else, we got 500 police to like roughly what, 100, I'm saying it's 400 and something police compared to our 100 and something citizens, employee citizen side.
1 minute to go.
More money into employment. Y'all could have done a lot of things, but y'all think it's more resourceful to take 58 million taxpayer dollars and dump it into already an over-policed area. Guess what? Y'all trying to be a big city with a Barney Fife mentality. This is Mayberry with the concept of wanting to be big city concept. We are so far from it. And it's these types of limitations of behaviors. So I'm going to say again, vote, 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 vote. State representatives can control this. Federal representatives can control this. We have another way to get around this. County even, because Knoxville is in Knox County. So there's ways to make you all do the right thing. And we have to be wiser. And I'm going to leave with one message for my people that are listening. The power of the people can never be defeated. The power of the people can never be defeated.
Thank you, Ms. Every. Next person signed up is Caroline Rowcliffe. Ms. Rowcliffe?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Do I need to state my name and?
Yeah, state your name and address for the record, and you have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Caroline Rowcliffe. I live at 1216 Raintree Road, Knoxville, Tennessee. And I'm here for accountability. I'm here for people because people matter. Therefore, I wanted to address a public comment that was made by Mayor Kincannon addressing this new facility called the Guest House. Mayor, you stated that at one time the facility has had about 6 to 7 residents, but at most recent update, it was empty since tests had come back negative. This means that so far, and I still quote, this means that so far, we have not had COVID transmission among our neighbors who are homeless, which is good news. Mayor, respectfully, there are anywhere from 4,000 to 7,000 houseless people in Knoxville, and this guest house room's 18. And from my understanding, it's empty right now. Most of these folks don't have transportation, so how are we getting the word out to 4,000 to 7,000 people that are houseless right now? Mayor, you continued on providing locations where restrooms are for houseless people. You gave 4. You then continued to address big-hearted and well-meaning people to not help/provide houseless people with food or clothes. You advised them to work with the BMC, CARM, and the Salvation Army. I have one question. Why would houseless people continue coming to those big-hearted and well-meaning people if their needs were being met by those existing organizations? Mayor, you asked a great question earlier about what should local collectives do. And if they're having to fill in gaps, the answer was to call 211 or to call Second Harvest, et cetera, directly. This may be more cost effective, which I'm all about, but how immediate is it? How spread out is that work? Again, people are starving. This is not bashing. This is not bashing. This is pointing out that folks' needs are not being met and that they are continually being ignored by the city. Mayor, I recall that you talked about studying disaster protocols at a previous press conference. And one of the key points of protocols that you mentioned Knoxville doing a great job at was transparency and communication. If Knoxville is doing so amazing at communication and transparency, then why have the guidelines to this guest house not been provided to the public? Is this guest house empty? Why? Will people that struggle with substance use disorder be turned away as they are turned away from other existing organizations? They are people too. Why are workshops like the City Community Improvement Fund workshop that took place today at 4:30 p.m. with no community input taking place? We live in this city too. I've lived in this city for 23 years. If Knoxville is doing so amazing at communication, then why are organizations funded by the city coming to a small volunteer group that I work with instead of being provided funds that they need to give clients during this crisis? Why are the majority of funds during this crisis continuing to go to the police when social services need them? Because people are literally starving and don't have access to running water to stay healthy during this pandemic. How many brand new toys do the police seriously need when that money could easily be going towards food and affordable housing to get people the necessities they need and to not further spread COVID-19? How many brand new toys do the police seriously need when that money could easily be going to PPE for workers who are having to go back to work to survive under this system? Why are funds not going to the thousands of porta potties we have access to disperse them across the city? 4 public restrooms are not going to cut it, especially if those 4 are not in predominantly Black neighborhoods who face the highest poverty levels in Knoxville, Tennessee, and of which are dramatically higher than the national average, specifically 41.6% amongst Black people compared to the national poverty rate of 25.2%. Why are funds not going to hotels to get people off the street? Do police need another tank? Another training room to further criminalize people in poverty? It's not cute, it's disgusting. If you've built up PPE as stated at the beginning of this meeting, why is none of that PPE at least being supplied to houseless, poor people, and again, workers who have to go back to work to survive? Mayor and council members, people voted you in. This is called accountability. Mayor, where is the justice and humanity that you built your platform on when you were running? Because it sure wasn't in that tank that you rode around in. Hold your ground, do what is right, and give more funds to social services. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rowcliffe. Next person is David Hayes. Mr. Hayes, please unmute yourself, and you know how to do it. State your name and address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Cool. So my name is David Hayes, 1312 Hawthorne Avenue. And it's really unfortunate to yet again this year, I believe this is 3 or 4 years in a row, that I've been attending budget meetings and yet again seeing a budget where social services and public services and programs are underfunded, where we're seeing resources shared inequitably, and see working class communities and Black and brown communities receiving little investment, or they do receive investment, it's in the form of gentrification, or, AKA displacement. Seeing no mention of human rights, seeing the over-reliance on aggressive taxes where rich people pay less and low-income people pay disproportionately more, and we're seeing another budget that's created without substantial community engagement or oversight over the budgeting process. So we need a budget that actually listens to the community and prioritizes the community, right? We need a budget where public service workers, firefighters, police officers, and all public workers get the same, right? Not just police getting all the bonuses and all the pay raises. All public workers deserve this. We need a COVID response that prioritizes homeless support and supporting nonprofits and supporting food access more than it prioritizes giving money to the zoo and giving more money to police, right? We need to actually see the city take leadership in addressing the housing crisis. We have over 5,000 people on the KCDC waiting list, and that's not even, and that doesn't even actually cover the scope of need in Knoxville. Yet the local funds going into it in the Affordable Rental Development Fund are only $2.5 million And if you add in all the other federal funds, it's only 13 million. And this budget is over $300 million, right? So we need a city that actually addresses the homeless crisis, where we have, 8 to 10,000 people homeless, where we have also an addiction crisis and a mental health crisis. And just giving 95,000 to 18 people capacity guest house isn't cutting it. Even the 593,000 to the safety center with only 16 jail beds to divert low-level offenders with behavioral health issues, mental health issues. That's not enough. 16 beds isn't enough for that need. We have a poverty crisis. Over 25% of people, over almost 50% of Black people in the city living in poverty, right? We have inequality rising to levels to be the third highest in the country, rated by Bloomberg last year, comparing the super rich and middle class, right? And we continue to see Black and brown and poor communities and working class communities just underdeveloped, right? We need our city to address those and not just hire a downtown coordinator when no other communities have a coordinator. Limit the money going to East Knoxville, give only $25,000 East Knoxville while you give $2 million to gentrify South Knoxville. And my family lives in the area that's receiving funds. And I can see, and it's very clear that with these funds and the development around here, it's going to become very much unaffordable for the working class here. And y'all are just feeling the gentrification, just like you're feeling the gentrification around the Science Museum. And just giving $542,000 to a community empowerment budget, just giving Charles Lomax, who's a great brother, a job with no power, that doesn't actually do anything in advancing equity in the city, right? And we all know we're facing a climate and pollution crisis, right? And just giving less than $400,000 to Office of Sustainability with 2 employees, that's not doing it. Having no money reserved for projects to reduce the carbon emissions and pollution to reach the goals, that's not doing it. Not having clarity on the mayor's climate council and their budget and what that's going to be made of, that's not cutting it. No mention of climate justice, environmental justice, and who disproportionately is affected. It's not cutting it, right? And if all this, with $58 million going to the police department, while social services are getting crumbs and people are dying on the street, while Park only has 1 employee and no power to change the police budget, it should be Park who's making the tank budgets, for instance. That should be their job, but they're not able to do that, right? We see the police prioritizing Corona funding. We see them prioritizing the grant funding, while we see garbage collectors and public service workers working at high risk, and they're not getting the benefits they need. And we see employees not getting paid leave in the city, right? So we need a budget that actually listens to the people and prioritizes the needs of the people. And if nothing has changed, the budget just as is, I hope folks will vote against this and vote for something better, something that the public can get behind. And I hope y'all make the right decision.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Last person signed up to speak is Mr. Rick Roach. Mr. Roach, please go ahead and unmute yourself, and you'll have up to 5 minutes, and you can start by stating your name and address for the record, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. First, I just want to say that the previous speakers, I'm pretty much in line with all of what they said. And it just reminds me of an old Parliament Funkadelic beginning lyric of a song. And it basically says, free your mind and your will follow. And that's what needs to take place with this whole budget process for the city of Knoxville, that hopefully we'll have a large public engagement in this process. But specifically, I do want to go to one thing that I think David Hayes had mentioned in part. We've got that agreement where the police department and the sheriff's department are handing over officer-involved shootings, the investigative part of it, over to the TBI. And you voted to expend monies to bring in body cams. And also Park was mentioned, and the role that they have to play. My suggestion would be, as far as the body cams go, we need to have more civilian participation in the process. I don't know what it's going to take, but and how it would be crafted, but PARC needs to play since they're already in place, they need to play a bigger role in how information, when a particular case comes up involving an officer, whether it is a shooting or in homicide involved or not, getting that information off the cams and getting it reviewed and reviewed in an impartial manner. I know maybe I'm missing something in the process of reviewing that information, how that information is going to be reviewed and then gotten out to the public. But I think there needs to be more of a direct civilian participation and review process involved in that, and PARC is the natural place to start. So, and I think you need to really be focusing on getting PARC more involved now more than ever. And I thank you all. I wasn't able to hear the whole meeting, but while I was listening, I did not hear the term "the new normal" because things never were normal in the past, and we don't want the kind of normal any longer. We can't stand the kind of normal that was going on in the past, as the previous speakers have pointed out. So again, free your minds, and you know what will follow.
Mr. Roach, could I get your address, please?
2404 Victoria.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Council members, that includes public forum. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.